Hello, everybody. Right, we're quite a small group and we're on Thursday, the 11th of April. And I'm just going to get us grounded into this meeting today together. So if you think of the attributes of liberation, opportunity, vitality, empowerment, they're bringing us together and we're moving forwards and uniting with lots of other people. And I would even say throughout the world. I know the experiences I'm going through at the moment, and it's really helping me appreciate that terminology and sort of reflect on what does each of those mean to me. So I'm just going to let you very briefly reflect on liberation. So go to your breathing, let's go to your heart center. And what does liberation mean to you? And now allow the concept of opportunity to come to you. What does opportunity mean to you? And really, you're with your heart center, you're with your breathing, you're alive in this world, and we're here making the place a better place, our inalienable rights, our freedoms. And then reflect on the concept of vitality. We're here, we're all breathing. With your heart center, we're emanating out, raising the vibration, bringing this positive paradigm shift through. And now go to the concept of empowerment. And notice your heart center, notice your breathing. Empowering yourself, making sure you look after yourself. You might even have the concept of choosing which battles to stand up and fight for. And then just allow yourself to open your eyes and know that you're in this meeting with us together. So I'm going to start this part of the meeting. I'm going to go to Rachel first, okay, and we'll get an update and then we'll catch up with Roger.
Yeah, so the beautiful news to report was our amazing meeting last Wednesday night. Now we haven't had a meeting since then, have we? Don't think we have.
No, because we didn't have last week's,
We
did
didn't
we?
have one last week.
Yeah.
That's right. So yeah, so Rogers, thank you for organising that. Because I wasn't really sure if anyone much would turn up. I mean, I put it out a couple of times, but it was an amazing crowd and it was so positive and so supportive and really high vibration, and so many people stayed afterwards and chatted, and there was a nice sort of whip round and they all put in donations for us, and yeah, I felt really positive and really enjoyed it, Roger. So thank you, and thank you for organising the room for me to stay in your amazing building. I thought that was great where you're living, Rog. And yeah, so it was nice to have that insight into your world and your tribe. I think a lot of them were your local regulars, and then I think a lot of them were like people speak out and people who've been following us. So you know, these messages, our messages, are getting out there. They really are, and people are resonating. So I felt it was really positive. So I don't know if you want to reflect on that, Rog.
And thank you, Rachel, so much for going up. It's so lovely that you're able to support Roger in the way that you have, because I know you've got a very busy life, and I think you've been up 2 or 3 times now to Roger and York, and for you to be able to make that event was just lovely for me to experience that you'd gone up there. Not that I was able to. I had put it out lots of places as well, so hopefully some of the people that I've put it out to came. So Roger, would you like to say anything either about that or anything else?
Just really to echo everything that Rachel said. And one thing which I've got to observe, which I observed, I think I'm right in this. I mean, Rachel is obviously famous for being in Dragon's Den, you know. But I got the impression, because I never heard anybody say the word Dragon's Den. Nobody said it. I got the impression that people greeted her just for what she is, a humble freedom fighter. That's the impression that I got. And, you know, I did get the feeling that people absolutely loved her. They really did. And I personally was so pleased to spend some time with her. That it was lovely to spend. I know we didn't have a lot of time to talk because she's so busy. I mean, her energy is incredible. She came up from Bakewell on that Wednesday, did the talk, and then the following day she had to dash down via Bakewell to get changed. She had to dash down to Vauxhall to give another talk. I don't know whether she stayed in London that evening or not, but anyway, I think that in itself is an achievement. So what's happening? Oh yeah.
And that's where even meeting up physically, I know I love the fact that we can do this because we can get together. And I wouldn't have even met both of you and loads of people that I know throughout the world, even if it wasn't for technology. But I'm so glad I've met both of you physically at different times. And when I went up to Rogers to actually experience where he lives and going to the pub that I know that you do meetings at, it's really helpful just to feel that energy as well. So thank you.
This was a reflection on the Thursday night, because the Thursday night was real, like hardcore freedom fighters, and the Keep Talking has been moved on by the Metropolitan Police, and they keep losing their venue because they're constantly being hounded, and they have quite controversial speakers. So it was actually quite great. And Piers Corbyn came along, and I said to that audience, and I said that I'd been to York the night before, and that the previous week we'd had a meeting up in Derby with the Reform people, and that my sense is that all over the world now there are these little pockets of people gathering in pubs, in little tea house venues, and like this is the movement. It's and little groups like this, little three of us. It doesn't have to be 1 million people on here, because this is like seeds all connecting up, and these connections, and particularly when they're in person, the vibration and the energy and the camaraderie and the positivity and the fun. I mean, when I did my presentation in Vauxhall, I did the PowerPoint, the East Midlands Mayor PowerPoint, because it was relevant to the London Mayor, of course, and Piers Corbyn. I don't know if he managed to stand because they stopped him from standing. And anyway, as I was doing the PowerPoint, every time there was a villain like Klaus Schwab, everyone went boo. And it was just like panto. It was just really funny. And yeah, it was great. So I really feel like this movement is unstoppable, and it's now all of the kind of it's hardcore people who are in this for the long haul, marathon running, that will never say die, and they will never forget. And we will be tenacious at pushing back on this shit show, and collectively helping one another and empowering one another, because this is the thing, this liberation, opportunity, vitality, empowerment, it's sharing all of this wisdom and knowledge. And then the next day I went on to do Philly J. Lay's podcast again. We had to refilm it because the camera wasn't working last time. So I went on and I did a podcast with her, and we were talking about natural health, which is very much into the vitality. And she is doing amazing stuff. And she's done over 100 podcasts, and she's hosting Barbara O'Neill, who's really speaking out against the big pharma and about natural health. I know you're big into this, Julie. So this thing of natural vitality and well-being is such an important piece, as well as the common law that you're into, Rog, and Dean of Buxton, and I'm very much into that. So all of these themes, which is all about empowerment, understanding our sovereign rights, we are creating so much we're helping to liberate people through this knowledge. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I could talk all day, so I'll shut up now.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Right, Roger, anything else you'd like to say today?
Well, I just want to describe the difference between a trial by jury and a jury trial, because this is very important. So, as you know, I'm a great proponent of trial by jury. And the reason for that is that we have two systems of, in brackets, law that we have to encounter in this nation. One is common law, which is very, very simple. You don't need a library of books like you see when you walk into a solicitor's office. You don't need that. You just need to remember cause no injury, no loss, no fraud to a fellow human being. That's it. You don't even need a notebook. You can remember that. I mean, I remembered it. My memory's not that brilliant.
And
On the other hand,
that word fraud, could we just change that to harm?
It's harm, yeah.
Yeah.
It's harm.
No harm. Yeah.
okay,
Sorry,
well,
carry on, Roger.
Harm, injury, or loss.
Yeah.
okay. So on the other hand, we've got basically the despotic system of legislation. So we've got these people in Parliament who decide what the law should be, but it's not law. And you'll hear them on the mainstream media talking about laws that Parliament has just made. Well, they're not. For a law to be valid for the state, or anybody else for that matter, it has to be consented to. Now, the only way we can consent to that is with a trial by jury. In other words, if we do something and the police come and tell us that we've committed an offence, and eventually it goes to trial, we can either choose to have a trial by jury or a jury trial. Well, I'm saying we can choose. If you listen a little bit further, you might find that is not exactly right. But the point is, if we're charged with something, like, for example, breaking the coronavirus, is it the 2000 Act, which is legislation, then if we disagree that we have caused any harm by what we've done, we ask for a trial by jury, because then the jury can decide whether the legislation is fair or not. Therefore, if we are in fact innocent of any causing any harm to our fellow human beings, we will be discharged as such, not guilty, by a trial by jury, not a jury trial. Now, a friend of mine actually knew how to go through the procedure in magistrates' court to get a trial by jury. And I'm not going to mention his name. That's not necessary. It's irrelevant. But he went through the process and realised that there are two sentences which you can say to get a trial by jury, and these are the sentences. First, you say, I don't understand. This is when you're standing in front of the judge. I don't understand. And the next thing you say is, I want a trial by jury. Now, this friend of mine managed to get
I
that.
require, sorry, I'm going to interrupt there. It's really important.
Sorry.
I require a trial by jury. It's not I want or I ask for or I'd like. I require a trial by jury.
Yeah, that's important. I'm sorry. I did know that and I got it wrong. So please listen to Rachel, because what she says is absolutely crucial. I require a trial by jury. That's the second sentence. So the first sentence is, I don't understand. The second sentence is, I require a trial by jury. So ostensibly, my friend did get his trial by jury, but it turned out on examination it was not the case. He thought that he was going to get a trial by jury, but it ended up that he got a jury trial. Now, the big difference is this. A trial by jury can actually decide on the law itself or the legislation, whichever way you like to think about it. So if the members of the jury decide that the law under which the defendant is being charged is unjust, then they can null and void it. It doesn't apply then to that defendant. But on the other hand, a jury trial cannot do that. So you can see there's a massive, massive difference. So that's really all I've got to say about that. There's nothing else to say about that, and we can move on to some more pleasant things, hopefully.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Right, Rachel, I'll come to you now.
Yeah, just to quickly add to that, the way to make sure, and I discovered this after that incident, is when you go to your trial by jury, you say to the judge, is the jury aware of their rights of nullification? And that's the way to test it, because it's called jury nullification. So you ask the judge, is the jury aware of their rights of nullification? And that will set the pigeon, what's the word? That will set the thing, cat amongst the pigeons. Because if they're not, then you know you've got a jury trial.
Yeah.
And also, if there aren't 12 people as well, you'll know you haven't got a jury trial.
Yeah. And if
a trial by jury, sorry.
If it seems it is a jury trial, presumably you'd state then, I require a trial by jury.
Yeah, I require this appears to me to be a jury trial. I require a trial by jury.
Yeah.
Because a jury trial is actually a French system which only requires a majority verdict, and they can't nullify the legislation. So they will trick you into believing that it is a jury trial, a trial by jury, but in fact it's not. So that's a really important distinction to be aware of. Yeah.
And if you think how we've been tricked and significantly tricked over the last 4 years, even in the pandemic, that wasn't even actually that. And these investigational injections that are still investigational and needed the definition of a vaccine to be changed and causing lots of harms, and still that's not getting out there. So I've had a bit of a week with different meetings and things like that. I've been very pleased to be able to support Alan Graves as a candidate for the East Midlands Regional Mayor. And his approach is, you might have seen the previous interview that Rachel did with him, and his approach is that basically he wishes to get elected in that position, and there's lots of interim staff already in place. So he will actually be replacing those staff with his own staff, and a legal department, so that he can bring the need for that position supposedly down, and so that we don't have that position. And I think that's really, really important. What's concerned me is, I know some people have been, when they've seen his Reform UK, because of Richard Tice and now Lee Anderson, they've been quite, whoa, and even saying, well, that's racist and all things like that. The people I have met of Reform UK, with just 2 exceptions that I've physically met, have been wonderful, really caring, properly there for the people. And they are so proactive to support not only local people, but they've been travelling in different parts of the country to help different people in different ways with different evictions and things like that that should not be happening. So I'm really pleased that I've physically met up with these people. And I know Alan Grave, I'm sure he said that he'd actually set up Reform Britain or
Derby.
something like.
Reform
And it's
Derby,
right.
it's a separate party. It was before the Reform UK.
Yeah, and so he's not what has become Reform UK. I just think it's a bit of a shame that they've got that tarring, and because of how I felt about a local MP called Lee Anderson. So he's not my local MP, but he's Ashfield, which is the next constituency to me. And I know that a lot of people that I've come across actually haven't been happy with him. I know some people might be, but so I wanted to meet him physically, or go to a meeting that he was at and presenting at, so that I could really see, well, what is Lee Anderson about? Is it someone that I want to support or not? And so I went to this meeting, and when I got there, it was even difficult to find out the location of the meeting. It was supposed to be at the outside, well, at the co-op at Selston. So I knew that much. Got there, the staff in the co-op didn't even know about a meeting. I'd got two other people with me, and so we sort of wondered, well, is it at a social club somewhere? So we whizzed off, because one of them was more local to that place than I am. We whizzed off somewhere and found out he's got a meeting on the 27th of April in that venue. And I checked on my email. Oh, no, it's definitely today. So we went back, and luckily I'd left my car outside the co-op. And so we went back just so I could get my car. And there he was with a small group of people. There were probably about 20 people. And he just started his address, because we literally got there just as the meeting should have been starting. And he did the about immigration and stuff like that, which I'm sure you've seen him various places saying things like that. And really, he didn't say much else of what I know many people are bothered about. And so then he said, right, anyone that's going to do some campaign leafleting for me, go over to that side. Anyone else that's left, if you want to talk to me, discuss question and answers, whatever, please do. So me and the friends I was with waited, and we let other people talk and ask him questions, and he responded to them. And then pretty much everybody had either disappeared to the campaign leafleting side, or had asked the questions they wanted. So then I went in with a question, and what's your approach with the investigational injections, please? Or I might even use the term vaccinations. Immediately he was like, oh, my wife's had 5 and she's already got lung problems and liver. And he was so aggressive with how he came across to me with it. And I just, so what about the excess deaths? And straight away was back at me. Do you know anyone? And I said, well, sadly, I do know of people that have had lots of adverse effects. And yes, some of them have actually died. So it is a reality. But he would not have it. So I said, and where are you on the face masks as well? I can't even remember what he said, but it was just, yeah, not helpful. And then the person that was more local to me is one of his constituents, and she'd actually sent him an email. She'd actually originally emailed Andrew Bridgen because she knew that he might be able to support her. But because she's not in his constituency, he messaged on to Lee Anderson, because she's one of his constituents. And Lee Anderson had never responded to her. So she did come in and say about the face mask, because she's ended up basically having to lose a job with the NHS, because the second lot of face masks coming in, she didn't feel physically able to wear them. She's got fibromyalgia and other things like that. And she's a significant member of staff in the NHS, or she was. And so she spoke to him about those. And he still didn't really give her any support that I could tell that she was being supported. And so we pretty much walked away. And then I thought, I've not mentioned my magnetic responses at my injection point. So I went back and I waited until he'd finished talking. And I said, can I just tell you that I've had magnetic responses at my AstraZeneca injection point, attracting and repelling. And the way he came back at me, basically, was he was trying to tell me that I was trying to hijack the meeting. If I wanted to hijack the meeting, I could have very much, intervened early and being much more aggressive and vocal. And the way he was with me was not supportive in any way. And so at least now I do know that I am not supporting Lee Anderson as a candidate. So anyway, since then, I then had a meeting on Sunday. So that was on Saturday. On Sunday, I had a meeting with some people from George Galloway's Working Party of Britain. And I have now actually become a member of that party. And potentially I might even be a candidate under that party name. What I met the coordinator and someone I'd already known. I'd met him a few weeks or months ago, and I've been sort of connecting online with him. And I know I do alliance with a lot of what he says and does, and I also do with the coordinator that I've now met. And really, there was a little bit of to do with the Brexit or Remain that we didn't entirely agree on. But the way they explained their stance, I was happy enough with, because I was definitely we needed to come out of the corporate European Union. Now I've realised on reflection that we have had the occasional European representative that has been helpful, because I think, you know, that lady that was at the Parliament at the meeting that we went to.
Christine Anderson.
Yeah, she's European representative.
MEP. She's an MEP for Germany, isn't she?
Yeah. Yeah, so once I was reminded of her, I thought, oh, there are actually some good people in there. But to me, they were trying to say at some points that coming out has caused us more problems. It has only caused us more problems because of the approach that happened, and we didn't come out instantly, and really they weren't expecting us to have to come out. But I'll just leave it at that on there. So I've got a meeting on Saturday with the Working Party of Britain in Nottingham, and they're very much for Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. We are completely different to Derbyshire, so we need our own steps forwards, and that's what we're looking at establishing. But I'm in there at the moment, and I wouldn't be, because someone was trying to get me to join Reform UK. That definitely did not feel right. And Richard Tice, I really believe that they'd be better to ask him to leave, and also Lee Anderson. But the Lee Anderson going in just really has put me off Reform UK. But I know there's lots of lovely, wonderful, respectful people in Reform UK. Another thing that I do is there's meetings online with Charles Coves, and it's an international movement. And it's on Sunday nights and Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock for 2.5 hours. And they usually have a presenter. And those sessions have been absolutely amazing to know what is happening in their areas of global stuff that's really supportive for us. Right, Rachel, I'm going to come to you, because I don't know if it's to do with what I've just said or whatever.
So I was just going to mention about Reform, because I'm intrigued about Reform, and I wasn't really, I mean, they're very much ex-UKIPers as far as I can see, and a lot of them are quite, you know, anti. But the thing that I hear people saying a lot was Richard Tice. I went to Richard Tice and he backed me, or I went to Richard Tice and he told me to do this. And so it's clear that Richard Tice there is a pot of money behind Reform and Richard Tice, and it's he that is bankrolling, or whoever is behind Richard Tice. And Nigel Farage was heavily bankrolled with Brexit by amongst others. There was an insurance guy, Aaron Banks, I think his name was. So it's clear that Reform has got a pot of money, and so this is the interesting thing, because I don't think Alan Graves could have done East Midlands Mayor had he not been bankrolled by Richard Tice. So this is the double-edged sword. So I've been actually following, because I did the follow-up video with the interviews with the two Reform guys, Philip Rose and Alan Graves, and it's been interesting to watch the comments, because obviously a lot of pro-Reform people on there who are the fan club. But there's also a lot of people that say, I would never go with Reform because of Tice, because of Farage, because they're all former Tories. because they're too right wing. So all of these parties, they have a sort of Marmite response. And I've had this conversation with Edward Oakenfull, because he's the Reform candidate for Derbyshire Dales. Now he's going to come on as a guest on next Thursday's Love Movement meeting, which is the members meeting, and he's going to talk about reform. So we are going to hold a space of non-judgment and keep an open mind and listen and ask questions. But I've been having conversations with him, because he's very much, oh, Rachel, don't stand against me, you'll split the vote. And my position on it is, well, firstly, probably I won't get many votes anyway. I didn't last time at the local council elections. And I'm standing as a platform to voice my strong opinions on the shit show. But also I believe that it's important to have an independent candidate to catch all those people who don't want the political parties and who do just want a local person that truly represents the people and can be a voice for the people, with no manifesto, no bigger agenda, no kind of levers, big corporate levers in the background, that can just purely be a voice for the people. So personally, I don't think it's splitting the vote. I think it's encouraging more people to vote, because there is an independent option. So it is my intention, unless I have a very strong reason why not, it is still in my intention to stand as an independent for Derbyshire Dales. And having changed my name, it will be Vote Love, and my name is now official. It's now on my passport, so no one can quibble, because even the authorities have to call me Love. So
Yeah. So Edward is Reform then, isn't he?
He's Reform.
Yeah. And what I've experienced since delivering some leaflets locally for Alan Graves is as soon as some people have seen Reform UK, what are you delivering those for? And I was quite shocked at how they were with me. And so I've tried to sort of fold the leaflet so that people won't necessarily see that as a first thing. If they know that he's wanting to bring that position down, then I think they're more likely to want to vote. And then people have said, well, how can you trust him? I've said, well, look, that's what he's got on his leaflet. And even the other leaflet that he's got with his masking tape over his mouth and things like that is so significant. He's got it out there that he is after bringing that position down. He's not just saying it in the background. So we will hold him to that anyway.
So just to say, Julie, on the fact that you potentially standing for the Workers' Party in Mansfield, because it's such a Labour area, personally, I think that's a good strategy, because I think George Galloway has got a real strong pull on disenchanted Labour voters. And I think that you standing for Workers' Party in Mansfield for the people is a good strategy. But I don't think it's a good strategy for Derbyshire Dales, which is why I still intend to stand as independent.
And I love your explanation as to why you're doing that, and it makes a lot of sense. And I know someone, because I had to be independent in the Mayor of Mansfield election, I know someone whose friend didn't vote for me only because I was marked as independent, and because Mansfield has got such a strong independent forum that are like another party, and that's why I never wanted to be independent. But other places haven't got that. And so having been as an independent, I know that hopefully we can get that message out there that I'm truly independent. But also now, from what you've said, it does make even more sense to hopefully feel that it continues to be right to be the Workers' Party of Britain as a candidate locally here. Right, Roger, you wanted to come in and say something.
Yeah, just a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me now, yeah?
Yes, we can hear you, yeah.
Okay, well, I should have said this earlier, but I'm going to say it now. A disclaimer. Anything that I say is not legal advice. And I believe I'm saying this for Rachel as well. And if she disagrees, she'll tell me. Okay. So it's just opinions and suggestions. So now I'm going to say something which I'm not 100% certain of. I'm fairly sure, but let's get another opinion on this before I say now this is correct. I believe that any offence that one is charged with can be challenged in the court that we talk about, a court of the people, a trial by the people. Okay.
Yeah, so
So
on that, Roger, I'm also part of a movement that Direct Democracy. Alan Petrie did a presentation in Derbyshire and also one in Sheffield, and they're promoting the idea of block vote, which I gather has some history that isn't quite what these people are doing. But what they're wanting to do is establish a Swiss equivalent in the United Kingdom, so that basically the politicians aren't doing what they're doing at the moment, and we have at least 3 or 4 referenda each year that are genuine referendum, either nationally or locally, to do with things that we're really bothered about, that we may need the people to make the decisions on. And I'm trying to encourage people to join on WhatsApp to the block vote and direct democracy links. And I'm early days to doing it, but from what I can gather, I should be able to put some question out there about complementary therapies. So Rachel mentioned natural health earlier, and that's very much where I am, and possibly the person that she's got the connection with might be helpful for me to connect with. I've been a patient and public voice since 2010 with the NHS. And when I was first there, I only went to become that because I know various people that are in the NHS as staff. And when I was in a gathering with them, they'd be talking and I wouldn't understand what on earth they were on about. It was jargon. So I thought I need to be able to meet them where they are, and they need to be able to know to meet me where I am. And so I became a patient and public voice in 2010. I was very optimistic, even at a National Health and Social Care Innovation Conference in 2016. And they'd even got a massage therapist on the NHS England stand there. And I've even interviewed with the Chief of Staff of NHS England when they were setting up vanguards. I now know more about that term vanguards, which I didn't understand then. And I always wondered why they even use that term. Now I do think it is quite sinister. I've done training as a patient and public voice for engagement and involvement, and I've passed that training. And yet now the NHS locally aren't even properly accepting me as a formal patient and public voice. And I've been trying to get I was supposed to have a meeting on Monday with someone from NHS England to do with integrating complementary therapies into the NHS and onto the NHS app to help to inform people properly about them. And that didn't happen. They still haven't responded to my email. And but I am not going to stop, and I am going to keep voicing. And when I've been working in the local communities, this week I was told that it's been questioned as to why is Julie allocated that room, and then if someone needs to talk to us about benefits, they can't. Well, there's other rooms that they can go and talk, and they've not even approached me to see if they could come in the room for a bit of time to talk to that person. So I do wonder if they're going to try and block me from even supporting people in the community. But they should know me by now. I am going to keep going there. I am going to keep standing up for the people. So, and I'm going to keep pushing this to be national. We need complementary therapies integrating into every local work and home community and every NHS venue. And I am working in the background really hard with that one. Right, Roger, I know you haven't quite finished anyway, but I'm going to come back to you. So, right, Roger.
okay. Wait a minute. Oh yes, you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, just to continue on the trial by jury theme, I wanted to say that all offences, all charges should be heard in a trial by jury situation. And I'm talking about speeding tickets here. I mean, fixed penalty notices are completely illegal or unlawful. So Rachel's just had an alarm for something. I don't know whether I should continue.
No, you're okay.
Okay,
Just carry on.
just to continue, any offence that anybody is charged with can be heard at a trial by jury.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the most important thing. But and I think that comes from the Magna Carta 1215. I think it's contained in the Magna Carta 1215. But I would like confirmation on that before I declare that.
Yeah.
So maybe Dean can confirm that or not.
Right, okay. Yes, I think we've done enough for today, possibly. We're on nearly 1:15, and knowing that we're all eligible for trial by jury and that we are here as communities to support each other in the background, and we have to sometimes just have that awareness of how and when we reach out for support and in the ways that we do. So Rachel, I'm going to come to you now.
Yeah, I just a very quick and important point on this is that the system will attempt to trick you into consenting to a magistrate's hearing, and it's very important to assert your right to a trial by jury and not consent to the magistrate's hearing, because we've experienced this before with someone who inadvertently was tricked into going along with the magistrates, because the police will present you to the magistrates quite often, and if you don't know what you're doing, they will trick you into consenting, and once you've consented you can't then change it later. And we had someone who tried to do that and they just said, you've already consented, and it was just like they kept blocking back, you've already consented, the clerk to the court, you've already consented. And it was really distressing to watch, actually, that there was absolutely no listening, no heart, no soul, no flexibility. Once they've got you and you've consented, you're fucked. So be very careful to not consent to the magistrates, because they are just a rubber stamp to rubber stamp you as guilty. That you've already been decided you're guilty by the Crown Prosecution Service, and they will bulldoze you through the magistrates, because trial by jury, it takes like over a year to get a hearing. And that's why if we all asserted our right to a trial by jury, the entire system would collapse.
And Rachel, would that apply with things like council tax? Because I know someone who hasn't paid the council tax because she's standing up.
Yeah.
Because
yeah, what they do with council tax is they do a block hearing, and they send you a summons to say there's going to be a block hearing, and they put like 700 people up in this block hearing for the magistrate to stamp it, which basically gives the council the right to send in the bailiffs. So it's really important, if you get a summons of any type, even for one of these council tax things, to rebut it and say, I do not consent, I require a trial by jury, and not allow it. Because if you ignore it, and this is another thing, it's very important not to ignore this stuff, because silence is a form of consent. So if you receive a notification and a summons, even if you go along there and you say, I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court, you either write or you go along on the day, and it's your right to be in court and say, I do not consent to the jurisdiction, remove my name, I do not consent, I require a trial by jury. You have to assert it very powerfully. And if you're going to write, make sure that you send it recorded delivery, signed for. And I've had this before where luckily everything I do, and they claimed they didn't receive my response, and they entered a judgment against me. This is a county small claims court thing, and I was able to have it completely collapsed and revoked because I could prove that I did respond and I did send a claim form in, and I had proof of posting and proof of receipt at the other end, and that their administration process was so crap that they so backlogged, because this is the thing with even with the small claims court, because so many people are contesting now, we're going to collapse the system. But if we just pay up because we want a quiet life, they will just merrily keep charging, whereas everyone, even if 10% of the people receiving these speeding fines or bus lane fines or parking fines or this or that or mobile phone or whatever, if we all pushed back and we all said, I require a trial by jury, and we, like, I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court, you don't have to agree to the small claims court. You don't have to. These are all set up as methods, convenient methods to fast track people through without due process.
Right,
So,
thank you very
sorry
much.
to be on my high horse, but we have overrun.
But Rachel, that is really helpful, because I've been able to write that down, and I'll be able to pass that on to the person that I know, because I know she's yeah, got to assert herself, can't just ignore it. So thank you. Right, Roger, I'm going to come back very quickly, but very mindful we do need to be finishing off as well. So yeah, Roger.
No, it's okay. I've finished. And
Oh, your hand's still up.
Pardon? Yeah, I know. I'm always doing that. Anyway, I just want to endorse what Rachel has just said. You have to be very careful to avoid the little traps and tricks that they have to get you engaged in their system.
Yeah.
For example, I'll just give you an example. If you obey the rule, whatever the judge says, or anybody involved who is working for the system, if you obey them, you're actually giving consent to be judged in their system. I'll just give you an example. Somebody who managed to avoid all the traps was just leaving the court after the judge had said, okay, you can leave. And he was chewing gum. The judge said, stop chewing that chewing gum. And he did. So then the judge said, come back here. And
that
also,
is an important point. When the judge says you may leave the courtroom, it's very important to say, I leave of my own volition.
This is good information from you. Good information.
I know this from Dean. These are all the tricks and the traps.
And also, when you actually are present in front of the judge, he will say to you, maybe stand up or sit down or whatever. You do not obey that, because if you do, you're giving consent to the jurisdiction of the court.
And what about if they tell you? What about if they tell you where to sit? Do you?
No.
Do not accept a seat. They will. That's one of the tricks. Sit down. Take us. The usher will say, take a seat here, and then when the judge comes in, they say, all rise for the judge. And of course, naturally, you're trained at school to stand up. Well, then you've consented to their authority. It's very tricky.
Right. Yeah. So basically, don't follow anything they say and just assert positively yourself. Right. Thank you. Right. We really do need to finish now.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure the people that be watching the recordings will get a lot from today and be able to ripple that out to lots of other people. And as Roger said, Rachel, you are a godsend to us as well, but I know we're all a godsend to each other, and we all have our different paths in life, and if all of us was doing the same, then we wouldn't have the wonderful variety of spice of life that we need to support each other, and we all support each other in different ways. And just remember, everybody, reach out to who it feels right to reach out to, try and listen to how they respond to you. You might need times of silence and just times and make sure you look after yourselves. So I do my daily rest, lying down, eyes closed, music on, every single day in the afternoon or evening for at least 10 minutes. And I know doing that every single day might not sound much, but it gives me the energy to look after myself first. And you must look after yourself first. You must learn to be selfish, because then you can be in a better state to look after anybody and everybody else. Okay. And that's what we need to do. And sometimes we need to learn to say, sorry, I'm not helping you today with that. Other things need priority for whatever reason. So thank you. I'll just stop the recording.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for hosting.
Thank you very much, both of you, for being here.